Hello everyone and welcome back to another exciting adventure in Avorion, the space sandbox simulator game. Today I'm going to be covering a lot on ship building. It's going to be more intermediate level with some basic stuff as well. I'll be covering thrusters, their positioning, their composition, as well as engine positioning, corners, sloped corners, and curves as well, and cargo bays, and a few other tips on how to snap things to the grid and stuff like that. I will have a follow-up video probably in just a day or two on different ships that I have built, like all the ones you see here, what I liked about them, what I didn't like about them, basically lessons learned, stuff like that. But I am splitting into two videos, mostly because there was just an enormous amount of content to cover. Having said that, even with two videos, the meat of this game is not combat. It is not trade. It is not economics. It is not diplomacy. It is not even exploration. Though those are optional components you can play, end of the day, this game is really about creative ship building. It's letting your inner child who used to build lots of things with Legos now build virtual Legos in space. That's really what the game is. And there is a lot of complexity to it. There's a lot of interesting things you can do. And I'm only just going to barely scratch the surface. I'm not even covering, at least for these videos, integrity field generators, shield generators, and so forth. I'll cover those and turrets and so on in a later video. Anyway, let's get started. So to start, let's go over the basics again of how you build a ship. So the way you do this is very simple. Normally you want to do this at a shipyard, as I've covered before, but for right now I'm not going to do that. The reason you do want to do a shipyard is it's cheaper and you can buy a captain. So let's go ahead and build a ship. Here we go. You build it, you have a block. Press B. You can then select various options to build what you want. So if you click the little plus here, these are the different types of blocks you can use. And they start at the top, which is the lowest level material. The lowest level material, if we press M and go out to the galaxy map, you can see it's on the far reaches of the galaxy, right? The lowest level is iron. It's the cheapest, it's the weakest, it's the most useless of all the material. As you get deeper and deeper into the center, you get better and better materials. You go eventually to titanium, to naonite, trinium, and a few others down to Avorion itself. Long story short though, those types of materials give you better upgrades. Usually, not always. Like a few things don't always have direct upgrades, and sometimes it's a downgrade, but they give you different advantages. Like right here, you have thrusters, engines, and a few other things as well. When you move up to the titanium area, you can get integrity field generators and generators to give yourself more power, whereas iron does not have that. When you move up to the next tier, which is naonite, the big advantage there is you get shield generators. And it keeps going on, right? You get better upgrades as time goes on. Like hangars, so you can make carriers, is in the trinium stage, which is the fourth level of material, which is this blue stuff right here. Now the way you do it is you click on a block that you want, you go around it, you make the block onto the side, you can move it around like this, we'll just make something silly like that. One little trick I have learned that you'll probably like is if you do something like this, it's hard to always line things up. Like you want to get in the center of the block. Well, the way you do that is you click over here where it says local grid. Click on that, go to block middle, and then you can suddenly select so it's always in the center, right? So maybe that's important because you want to put thrusters and you want to make sure they're always lined up, but you don't want to constantly fight with the system to remember where things go, right? So it's like, oh, am I in the center? Oh, no, I'm not in the center. I messed it up. Well, the easiest way to get around that is go to block middle. Click, 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 like that. Very easy, very simple. It's a good little trick. I'd highly recommend it. It also helps when you're making bigger ships. So like this gigantic ship here off to the side, I used a lot of block middles. That's how I got it so regimented in its style. Additionally, what you really want to do when you build these is many times you do Control C, Control V to put something on the side like that. Simple, right? If you want to do sloped edges, what you do is you pick one thing, like let's do the iron stone edge. So you have this as a block. It's just a triangle. You put it like that. And we have to get out of block middle, local grid. And then what you do is you rotate it. So press and hold R, and these different rotation axes appear. And what you want to do is rotate it around, like that. And push it right against there, copy and paste the lower one, put it on top, like that, like that, and you can just keep going and going. To get different types of slopes, obviously, you just increase the width of the thing, right? So like that, rotate it again, like that. Okay, a radically different slope, depending on what type of aesthetics you want. Additionally, maybe you want to have a corner that doesn't look like it has a jagged edge. The way you do that is you use a corner piece. So like, for example, the iron corner armor would work very well. What you do is you have to line it up. It can be a little tricky to line up, but if you do it like that, see, it's not quite as jagged. It's not perfectly smooth, but it's better than nothing. The way you can approximate slopes is you have to make very, very small pieces. So if we control paste this, right? We bring the scale step way, way down. We can bring the grid size way, way down. And what you can do is do something like this. Rotate it around. Oops, rotate it around. For doing things like this, you probably want block middle on because the grid size and scale step you're going to have are going to be so ridiculously small. And then what you could do is just gradually bring it down, just like that. Very, very gradual, right? Rotate it around. And bring it down again. And there you go. You have something it's not a perfect perfect curve, but it gets the idea. And as you move farther away, you can't quite tell. So we could then, for example, select this, and let's paste it up one more time. Let's see if we can get one more on height. No, we can't. Okay. So we do that, select all, paste, press all to rotate it around. And now the hard part is lining it up. So we have to go back to local grid. Yeah, local grid. And I'm probably not going to get this right the first time, but it's going to look something like that. And oops, now you have something that approximates a curve. Again, the bigger it is and the more time you want to spend on it, the more pieces you want to manage, the more curve-like you can make it look. Next, I'll show you how to make flush edges when the editor is not behaving. Because when you want to put a block onto another block, you have to put the mouse over the other block you want your block you're about to create to snap to. Now, the problem is I want to make a block that's flush with this one, and this one. And let's just use a titanium shield generator. The problem is if I try to select anything, I'm selecting the thing behind it because that's in the center. And it won't let me do that because it's overlapping too much with the thruster to the right and to the left. The way you get around this is you create a shimmy. This is a temporary thing that, oops, this is a temporary thing that you will use solely for setting this up. And we put it right there, and actually let's get the block size back up to a realistic size. One more thing I'll point out, in general, for your own sanity, whatever scale step you choose, like I normally go with 0.5, that's usually good for me. Make sure that your grid size is 1/2 of that. I would not recommend, under normal circumstances, changing that ratio, whatever your numbers are, but keep the ratio at 1/2. So what we'll do now is we'll add this guy on, like that. And now we will copy and paste. And now we have a much better design that we can use to flush it up. So we add a shimmy there, line that one up, cross a little bit more, a little bit more. And like that. At least that's the trick of how you would do it. When you're done, you delete this. The next item is cargo bays. Cargo bays are interesting. Normally what you want to do is bigger is better in this case. So let's build a 1x1x1 block. So this is a volume of 1. It gives you a cargo hold space of approximately about 0.5, depending on where you add it. But that's about what it gives, about 0.5. And you can see that on the right here where it has the green. So if we were to suddenly add a 2x2x2, which is a factor of 8 larger, we would expect the volume to be 4 instead of about 0.5. So if we grab our 2x2x2 and paste it here, you see it's 11.8, which is quite a bit more than 4. So that's a huge increase, even though the relative volume is not that much bigger. Furthermore, if we get a 2x2x4, like right here, this is actually an upgrade of about 27. Though computed from the prior 2x2x2, it should only be about 23.4. And this keeps going up and up and up. If I were to put a 4x4x4 here, it would be an increase of 150, which is pretty substantial. So, long story short, bigger is better for cargo bays. You want to make them big. Don't just put them like this. Like that, like that, like that, like that. Because that's not going to gain you as much. As a case in point, a lot of my cargo ships, especially this one here, the Centipede Prime that I'm flying towards right now, this one has enormous cargo blocks. The reason for that is for the reason I just showed you, and that is that big blocks just hold more. Now we're going to cover thrusters. So this ship here is a special demo ship that I built solely for this purpose. It has a bunch of crew quarters in the center and has titanium generators along all 6 sides. It's set up this way because there's an equal distribution of mass across the entire ship, and it has a pole sticking out on each side of the ship. Now right now, if we go to the menu, we can see that it has 0.01 radians a second for its yaw, its pitch, and its roll. So its yaw is taking the green side, which is the front, so the green is the front, the yellowish color is the top, the red here is the back. It might not look like yellow here, but that's because of the shade from my giant Borg ship over there. So the yaw is turning this thing over to the side here, or to the side here, so it's moving it from left to right. Remember, this is the front of the ship. The pitch, which is up and down, is taking the front of the ship and moving it either to the yellow bar at the top or the silver one down here. It's just moving the ship up and down. The roll is rotating around the center axis of the ship, so rotating around this green and red bar, or taking this and rotating up to here, or maybe down to here. So right now, if we exit out of this, it's not rotating at all because we don't have any thrusters on it. This is a beta release of the client, I will point out. Earlier releases would still rotate you, albeit very, very slowly. So in this case, it's not. So let's go ahead and add a thruster. So we'll add a titanium thruster. We'll put one right here. We can see it hasn't improved anything, so let's add one more. Okay, there we go. So starting to improve. We see a 0.03 and a 0.02. So I'm going to let it go. And if you let it go, if you look carefully, you can see it's gradually rotating, gradually rotating. That's pretty slow. So let's add a few more. Let's add one here. Again, we're going to do the block middle. It just makes it so much quicker to snap these things on. We'll add one more there and one more there. It's turning a little better. It's the yaw is better. You can see the yaw is up to 0.13. That's interesting. Let's let it go and see what it does now. So it's rotating around. It's doing it. Now what we're going to do is let's reposition where these thrusters are. So we have 5 thrusters. Let's go ahead and delete these. And let's put a thruster on the far edge. We need the local grid though to do that. Well, look at that. We have it on the far edge. It's 0.07. So if we let this go, it's still rotating. But there's just one. Before we needed 5. So we Control C and Control V this. Well, how much more do we need for 0.7? So you add one here, add one there, add another one there, and add one about there. Basically, we need 4. So why is it different from over there to there? Well, the reason is because of torque, or the law of the lever. So the premise being, if you give me a lever big enough, I can move the moon. Same reason why you're replacing the tires on your car, you use a wrench with a very long handle. That way you have more torque. You're not stronger, but because of higher torque, you can remove the bolts. It applies as well here. So we'll move this, and we're going to zoom out a little bit here, and I'm going to hover this over here. You can see if you look at the top there, the roll is the yaw is 0.05. If we move it in a little bit more, it falls down. Now it's 0.03. Move it in more, it's 0.01, until eventually it's basically nothing's happening. The reason this is that the same amount of force applied here has more torque than a force applied right here. So if we add, let's just add it right out to the far side here. Out here it's as high as 0.07 on the roll and 0.07 on the yaw, but there's nothing on the pitch, which is the up and down. The reason for this is to move the ship up and down from the perspective of the front, you have to put a force on this dimension. This thing can't do that. It can't do that because it only generates force out this side, so it can move this ball over to the green or to the red, and it can generate force here and on the bottom, which means it can move this ball down to here, or it can move it up to here. It does generate some force on this side, but that only pushes the ship that way, and some force on the other side, which you can't see because it's covered by the titanium generator here, and that will push the ship this way, basically right into me who's looking at it right now, but it won't rotate the ship. That's why your pitch is still at 0.01. So if you want to get the pitch up, let's put a block right here. And here you can see it improved by 0.07. But also by putting it over here, we improved the yaw, which is the left to right, because it's going to generate force here and force here, which moves this ball from over there to there. So this also complements this one. So when you're building your ship, make sure you pay very careful attention to that, because it will have a slight influence on how your ship behaves. Where you put thrusters may have secondary effects, which can be very beneficial if you don't want to have too many thrusters. Additionally, having a ship that has more space in it is useful because you put thrusters farther out. If you've ever seen the procedurally generated ships, right, all the AI ships, one of the reasons those massive ships can turn so fast is because they're very small, they have very low mass, and then they have thrusters way, way, way out on the edges. So by the law of the level, they can turn the ship pretty fast with a relatively small thruster. Many ships you see players design are normally very bulky. They look a lot like this gigantic behemoth behind me. It's very large and it takes enormous thrusters to turn that thing around. Now, in this case, we're going to go ahead and delete the thrusters, and I'm going to show you another trick here. Now, what they've done with the latest patch is the thrust generated is determined by the volume. How much thrust is sent out a particular side is determined by the surface area. In the past, the amount of thrust generated was the surface area alone. So let me show you what that actually means. So in the past, if I shrunk this all the way down, and I zoom in here and I start adding this on, and then I add this guy, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now just looking at this side here, and this side here. In the original version, this would produce the same amount of thrust coming out from this side as over here. If you did this, this would generate now 4 times as much thrust as this, coming out from this side. So this is what used to happen in the game, and they've been patching this, and that's the version I'm using right now. So what would happen now is the surface area here determines how much of the thrust that's generated gets sent out by a particular side. So this would send so 4/18ths will go out this side, 4/18ths will go out this side, 4/18ths this side, and on the bottom side, and then 1/18th on this side and 1/18th on that side. So that was probably actually pretty confusing. So let's shrink this down a little bit. If we do this, let's see, 1, 2 times 4, 8, 10. So 2/10ths of the thrust generated will come out from this side. 1/10th will come out from this side. 2/10ths from this side, 2/10ths from this side, 1/10th from the far side here, and of course 2/10 on the bottom, which you cannot see from this perspective. So that's how they've changed it. So let me show you what that actually means in practice. So let's go ahead and show that by showing you how braking thrust works. So up to now we've only shown you how to do the yaw, the pitch, and the roll. So we're going to go ahead and extend this out just a little bit. Let's do it the easy way. There we go. So we put that on. Now what this does is it generates a brake thrust of 3.1 meters per second. I will point out it does not matter where you put these thrusters on the ship as far as brake thrust is concerned. Now where you put them will have significant impacts on the yaw, pitch, and roll, but it will not have any different impact on brake thrust. So I could put one here, it's still 3.1. Put another one there, and there, and there. You could just do this, and it makes no difference. It's the same thing. Now the only reason it was decreasing a bit is it's an action of diminishing returns. It doesn't matter where you put it on the ship, it's just an action of diminishing returns. That's all. So let's go ahead and clean this up. Now what we'll do is we'll put the thruster back, and you can see it's 3.1. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the exact same type, but we're going to make it as a bunch of pizza boxes. So we're going to go ahead and put 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is a 2 by 2 by 2 block, just like this. It's the exact same thing. We're going to go ahead and select it. We'll delete it. Now you can see again, the brake thrust is 3.1 meters per second. Now let's delete this and paste the pizza box one here. It's 6.2 meters per second. It's the same volume. The reason this happens is because of the surface area. Remember, the volume generates the thrust. So this is generating the same amount of thrust as the prior one. The difference is because the surface area of this volume is greater on this side relative to this side, to this side, to this side over here, and to this side here. More of the thrust that is generated is sent out this way. That is why when you make pizza boxes like this, you can still generate a lot of directional thrust right out the front to slow you down. Now let's take this and we're going to rotate it 180. So remember, it's 6.2 meters per second. Also notice how the yaw and the pitch and the roll are basically 0.01 to 0.03. Let's delete that. We're going to paste it and we're going to rotate it around 90 degrees. Two things happen. The first one is the brake thrust has fallen. It's plummeted to 1.6 meters per second. And you also notice that the yaw, instead of being 0.01 or 0.03, is now 0.14. The reason is because most of the thrust that's generated is sent out the sides. Like that. So let me show you real quick on this gigantic ship I have in the corner how I've used this. So inside the ship I have these gigantic directional thrusters. Absolutely enormous. Can't quite see the engines on them. I think it's because of the update, but each one of these things you see here is a Zanian thruster. It's just enormously wide. So if I go in and I select it, you can see it's a Zanian thruster, though you don't see the engine blocks on it, which is kind of unfortunate, but it's huge. And most of the thrust that it generates comes right out the top and the bottom. So this is how I can take my ship and get actually decent performance perspectives on the roll. Unfortunately, this version is not the most latest one. I had to use an autosave, but I also have massive thrusters along the sides here to help make it turn very quickly left to right. And this is why you can also see on the roll at least it's 0.37, because I have most of the thrusters all up and down here. Okay, so let's get out of here. And let's go back to here. Now I will show you briefly that they have added a brand new feature, which I'm only just going to show you that it exists. I'm not going to talk any about it beyond what it does, and that is the idea of a directional thruster. A lot of people complain when they change this from the surface area model to the volume and surface area model. So now Oops. If you do this, you can actually set up a thruster that has only one direction. The reason for this is obviously to add massive braking thrusters. So if I scale this down a little bit more, there we go. Now you can see the brake thrust is 9.4, which is substantially more than even the pizza box method. Regardless, these are different tips and tricks you can use. Whether that's useful for you or not might depend. Again, this is not released in the current game. It will probably be released in a week or two because the developer's still modifying it. The last thing I'll show you on this particular piece is engines. So let me go ahead and add a thruster. Right there. And now what we'll do is we'll add an engine on the back. The thing with engines is it's a simplified model. The engines only apply thrust to the back of the ship as if it's in the center of the mass. What this means is you don't have to add an engine here to prevent your ship from spinning around wildly. If you add an engine here in real life, what would really happen is they'd act like a thruster and it would just spin you around like a top. Not so in this game. So let's just show you for the sake of example. We'll add just an absurdly long engine like that. And we'll go out here. And I don't have crew on this, so it's a little bit slow. Actually, let me do this. That's a mod that I have installed mostly for this demo because I wanted to equip all the ships with crew so you can see the performance specs. So now you can see we're going straight. The only reason I turned before is because my camera was off to the left a bit and the front was angling it. But notice how again it doesn't actually change it. And what matters is that the engine itself always applies thrust to the back of your vessel, regardless of where you put it. And if you try to rotate the engine around, it's not going to do what you think it's going to do. What will actually happen is if we, for example, shrink this down quite a bit, and let's go ahead and rotate it because you would think this would slow you down a lot. Oops, not that way. Like that. See, it just keeps putting the engine where it needs to be. It doesn't matter what you do on this. It's how the game works. And thanks for watching the first half of the shipbuilding video. I will have a follow-up one soon, detailing a lot of the ships you see here, what I liked about them, what I didn't like about them. I would also like to thank everyone who's viewed my prior videos, including the first video whose audio quality was less than ideal. Having over 1,000 views for one of my videos and all the subscribers and likes and comments that have happened has been very encouraging. And because of that, that's why there actually is a fourth video today. As originally I was probably only going to do 3 videos, but the level of interest was somewhat surprising. So please, if you do like it, do like the video. If you want to subscribe for more content, please do so. And also, if you have any comments, like constructive criticism, questions, concerns, or things you would like to see maybe in future videos, please let me know, and I'll do what I can to cover them if appropriate. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Have a good night.